Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining tonight's Tuesday Talks webinar. My name is Susan Brown, and I am the Associate Director of Parent and Family Programs. It's our pleasure to be hosting a webinar on tonight's topic, Tips and Tools for Living Off-Campus. Tonight, you'll be hearing from Off-Campus Student Services. Our presenter is Rebecca Regan. She is the Director of Off-Campus Student Services. She is going to do a presentation tonight, and then following her presentation, we will be taking your questions. You will be able to type your questions at the end of the presentation into the right-hand side of the screen where it says Q&A. So at this time, we're going to get started. Thank you, Rebecca, for joining us. I know many parents are interested in hearing about living off campus and some of the different techniques and helpful hints, that type of thing. So.
Absolutely. Good evening, everybody. My name is Rebecca Regan. I'm the Director of Off-Campus Student Services, and I'm really glad to be with you tonight to share with you all that we do in Off-Campus Student Services and how we can assist you and your students either now or in the future. And so as Susan indicated, we're going to go through this presentation, and please let us know any questions that you have, because at the end we're going to be answering your questions and anything specific that you might want to know. But also know that after this presentation, we are always available by phone, and please send your student to us if you think it would be beneficial for your student to come and chat. So we are going to get started. And our office, Off-Campus Student Services, we are located in 151 Spear Hall. And that is our phone number, and you can reach us by email as well. It's just offcampus@Northeastern. And our website address is northeastern.edu/offcampus. Okay, so I want to go over the 4 areas that we really assist students. And that is apartment hunting advice. We help connect students to landlords and roommates. We also help them read their lease through a program that's called Lease Genius. And we also help them with a number of problems that they might have off campus. And I'm going to talk about these as I go through this presentation. But to start off, I want to go over some of the resources that we have that are available to your student as well as all of you to access. And the majority of the information I'll be going over today is on these resources. So feel free to access them now or later if that will be helpful. So our main resource is our website. It has lots of information about the apartment search process, about living off campus, about the neighborhoods, and about everything from renters' rights to details about moving into the apartment come September 1st. So please go to that because there's lots of pages and everything that I'm saying today is on that website. And that is, again, at northeastern.edu/offcampus. We also have a handbook, so if you prefer or your student prefers something on paper, feel free to pick this up. It's in our office, and if your student's on campus, they can certainly come by and pick that up. Again, located at 151 Spear Hall. We're open from 9 to 5. Those are our regular hours. Every semester, we do have evening hours available. I do not know at this present time what they will be for spring, but there will be 1 or 2 hours so that we can accommodate students who are on co-op, who usually work until 5. And those evenings, we're usually open until 7. So keep an eye out on our website for when those days will be in the spring. Another great resource that we have are our community ambassadors, and these are students who work for our office, who are student employees, and they're called community ambassadors, and they are a fantastic peer resource for your student. All of these community ambassadors live off campus. They've experienced a lot of both positive and negative experiences off campus, and so they're a great resource for your student to talk to. So they do a lot of advising in the office. They also coordinate a number of workshops and events that we have for students, and they also lead community service projects. Okay, so to get into our first topic of support that we provide students is the apartment hunting process. and all the advice that we provide with that. And as some of you may be thinking about and experiencing right now, is looking at what does that look like in the next coming months. So as you are talking with your student, which I hope you all have conversations over the holiday break about what this might look like for them, one of the big things to consider is the neighborhood. Where do they want to live? You know, Northeastern is an urban campus. It is in Boston, and there are several distinctive neighborhoods around Boston or around Northeastern where they can live and where a lot of students do tend to live, such as Fenway, Mission Hill, also along the Columbus Avenue area. This is just a little map that kind of shows you where Northeastern is amongst the different neighborhoods or areas within Northeastern. So your student will really want to think about how far do they want to live, what do they want their commute to look like, do they want to just solely walk, so they need to be a little closer. And just remember that the closer you get into Boston, downtown Boston, the more expensive apartments will be, and the further out you go, that prices will drop a bit. So keep that in mind. Okay, the next area to think about is roommates. Who does your student want to live with? Do they have friends currently who they might want to live with? Do they need to find new roommates to live with? One of the biggest pieces of advice that I can give is just to make sure that your student trusts the people that they live with, that they can ensure that the person they're going to live with will continue to pay the rent, that they will be amicable roommates and get along. That can be hard sometimes when you're living with your best friend. So that's just something to consider. Please know, you'll see in the second bullet, it's the no more than 4 law that's here in Boston. Essentially, this is an ordinance that Boston has established in order to prevent overcrowding. And what it states is that no more than 4 undergraduate students can live together in one apartment. Most apartments in this area can't hold more than 4 people, so usually that's not a problem. But in the Mission Hill area, there are larger apartments. We just want to make sure that landlords are not housing more people in an apartment than should be there. So keep that in mind. Use our online housing database. This is a great place for your student to look for roommates. So if they don't have anybody to live with right now, they can find roommates on the database. And I'm going to show you a screenshot of the database in just a couple minutes so you can see where that is. Also, have your student check in with their academic program. Their academic program might have a Facebook page or some other social media or some way to connect to other students in their grad programs also might be able to connect with students that they're studying with. So this is the housing database, and it can be found, this is the URL for it. It is separate from our website, so keep that in mind. It is not the same as our website, so the URL is different. It's APT, short for apartment. It's aptsearch.northeastern.edu. And your student has access to this database with their Northeastern login and password. And they can just use their standard login and password that they use for other things on campus. They don't need to create a separate one. If you have had a student in the past that has used this database and they had to create a different one, that system has changed. You as a parent can log in as a guest. So, or you could get the login and password from your student, but you would of course need to get their permission. But you can sign up as a guest. So this is what the different features within the database. So at the top, I know that the screenshot's a little small, but at the top are different fields: apartment listings, roommates, realtors, and there are some other off-campus resources as well. But those are the 3 main links at the top. So you can go on, request a guest account, and gain access for 30 days. And you can click on the housing tab and look at apartment listings. And you can search by neighborhood, you can search by 2 or 3 bedrooms, you can search by price, so you can really narrow down the listings through the filters that are available. And this is a great way to see what is in the area and what is available. I also highly recommend that you and your student use this database because there are lots of realtors in the area. Some are better than others. And we, as Off-Campus Student Services, have control over this database. So we do have the ability to say, you know, we've had incidences where a realtor or a landlord has not treated our students well, so they do not get to list on our database. So we're able to have at least some control over who's listing on there and hoping that they're treating our students well. Now, that comes with a caveat that if anything happens and you feel like a realtor or landlord's not treating you well, or something happens with your student and you feel like that realtor is not listening to them or not showing them the right apartments, let us know, because this is how we talk to these realtors and make sure that they are acting in the way that we expect towards our students. But do go ahead and use this database. If you're using a realtor that's not on the database, feel free to call us and ask us if we've worked with them in the past, and we can tell you that. Also, if your student is planning on going abroad or is doing a co-op in another city and does not want to sign a lease, your student can also find a sublet. And a sublet is, you don't sign a full-year lease. It's usually short-term for a couple of months, and they're subletting the room of another student. I'll go into this a little bit more in a couple minutes, but your students who are leaving their apartment, either go on co-op or go abroad, will list their apartment on the database. So other students can find it and sublet that room. And so just to reiterate that this site is free for both you and your student. Okay, another housing option, I wanted to go over this with you all, is there's a brand new building. So the housing database has lots of listings of apartment buildings, triple-decker houses, other types of housing options in the area. Lightview is another building that's right next to campus, right on Columbus, and it's about a 3-minute walk across Columbus Avenue to campus, and it's brand new, and the rooms are going to be available starting September 2019. And leases are available now, and students can see a prototype of a room. And so these are brand new rooms. It's close to campus, and it is available to students who are not required to live on campus. So if your student is required to live on campus, and those are the first and second years, then unfortunately they're not eligible to live in Lakeview. But if they aren't required, whether they're in a specific program during their first and second years and they're not required to live on, this option might be available if this is interesting to you. You can contact Lakeview and chat with them about options and any questions that you have. And this is just a picture of an example of an apartment. They are fully furnished. So if buying furniture and furnishing an apartment and all of that seems a bit too much, this might be a good option because they are fully furnished. Okay, subletting. So as I mentioned, subletting is a great option for students who don't want to sign a lease. So you might be going home for the summer. You might be studying abroad or going on co-op, or you don't wish to purchase furniture, or you just don't want to sign a lease for whatever other reason. These are all great reasons why students want something more shorter term. We do suggest that if your student is going abroad or on co-op in the fall semester, but going to be here the rest of the year, we don't suggest signing a lease. And that is just because signing a lease for September 1st, but then turning around and subletting it to somebody else and not being there, we've seen can cause some problems. So if that's your student's case, then thinking about subletting when they return for spring 2020. Does that make sense? So if they're looking at going to co-op next fall, 2019, have them think about subletting for spring 2020. So to sublet, go a little deeper in detail for the housing database. You can search for it under listing type. So you can see in red the little buttons highlighted in red. On the right-hand side, you'll see the title listing type, and you'll see sublet. So all you or your student would need to do is just click on sublet, and all the sublet listings would populate. And then you and your student would just want to determine how much rent you want to pay, distance to campus, and then you would, or your student would then directly contact the other student who has listed that sublet and then communicate directly with them. The other type of housing which your student might need at any point is temporary housing. So if your student, say, is living on campus in the summer of 2019, and then they need to move out by the certain date, which is usually around August 15th, they might need somewhere to stay for a couple of weeks before their September 1st lease starts. That's where temporary housing comes in. So they could stay somewhere at one of our listings that we have. And that is right on our website, offcampus/temporary-housing. This also comes into play if, you know, there's something going on with your apartment, if the landlord needs to fix something and they need to move out for a couple of days, we can also help them find temporary housing that way. Or they're coming back from study abroad and they need a couple of days before their lease or their sublet starts, or a couple of weeks. So please check that out if that falls into your situation. Some of the things to really consider when you're looking at living off campus, and those are, I mentioned this earlier, is just picking your roommates carefully. I cannot stress this enough, that making sure that your student knows the other students, they're all on the same page about living style, they're all on the same page about who's paying what for rent. We do have a roommate guide in our office, and I believe there's a PDF on our website. And that's just a really great guide to start conversations with your student, with the other roommates, to really talk about what does living together really mean. Plan for first, last, security, and broker fee. And if you're not from the Boston area, one of the things that is unlike a lot of other cities is that a lot of brokers, almost all the brokers and realtors in the area, charge a 1-month broker fee, non-refundable broker fee. This is legal, it is standard, and they all do it. So it's really hard to get away from it. It is challenging to find an apartment listing that is listed by a landlord, so there's no broker fee. That's really hard in this area. So I know that it's a lot of money, and unfortunately it is standard practice in this area. So when you're thinking about what you need to pay up front when you sign a lease, it's first month's rent, last month's rent, the security deposit, which is refundable if no damage is caused, and the broker fee. So that's 4 months rent right up front. So I just want you all to be aware of that, because that does tend to, you know, equal a lot of money for students. And so then what the roommates do is they then split that amongst the roommates when they're signing the lease. I want to reiterate the point that these are the 4 main things that you pay when you sign a lease. If you're being asked to pay an application fee, a key fee, a pet fee, some sort of other random fee, most likely they're illegal. They're not supposed to be charging other fees besides those 4 that I mentioned. If they're charging you for other things, let me know. Give us a call and ask us. There is a practice going around in Boston where a lot of them do ask for application fees. You can fight that. and ask not to pay it. If you have any problems with that, just let us know. Review the financial aid award that your student might have, because some student financial aid awards may cover housing costs. Also, they will be asked to have a cosigner, which may likely be you. So because students are students and do not have, most of them, full-time jobs and a full-time paycheck that comes with those jobs, that the realtor and the broker will ask for a cosigner. So anticipate that, and don't be surprised when they ask you to sign a cosigner form. The standard lease term is September 1st to August 31st a year. It is hard to find month-to-month leases in this area. There are leases that start January 1st, June 1st, but those are just not as frequent. You can find them, but there just aren't as many of them as the September 1st start dates. So if your student is looking for something outside of September 1st and you're having trouble, let us know, because we can help you with that. Unfurnished is the norm. So finding furniture will be something that your student will have to do. There are used furniture places in the area. A lot of students also will buy and sell their furniture on Northeastern Marketplace, which is a Facebook group that is available for them to use. I would highly suggest that your student, and you can reiterate this to them, to not pick up any furniture off the sidewalk that's fabric. There does tend to be problems with bugs, bed bugs, things like that, in fabric type furniture, couches, chairs. So just tell your student to avoid those, and because around September 1st, a lot of furniture is left out on the sidewalk, and so a lot of students will just take it. So I just want to reiterate that point. And consider if subletting is a good option for your student. Just think through, what are their plans? What do they want to do in the next year? Because once you sign a lease and it's a year lease, you're committing to that year lease. Now, if they're going on co-op in the spring or going away for the summer, they work with us, we can help them find a sublet. That happens all the time here, so don't worry about that. But we just want to make sure that they work with us to do all the steps that they need to do in order to find a sublet in time. But again, everybody's circumstances are different, so chat with us about it and we can help you through it. Okay, next topic that we help with is connection to landlords and roommates. Okay, so we have a big apartment fair in February where your student can come and talk to a number of realtors who are listed on our database, and it's held right in Curry Student Center, and that's February 6th from 4 to 7. So if your student is interested in moving in to an apartment September 1st, please have them come to that apartment fair. It will be very helpful. Why go? Again, finding a quality realtor, because all the realtors who will be there are the ones that list on our site. And whoever you work with, you just want to make sure that they have an office location, they answer your questions, they show real available properties, they're good standing with the Better Business Bureau, and they pass the gut test. If they don't pass the gut test and you don't feel good about them, move on to somebody else. You do not have to work with them. Okay, Lease Genius. Before your student signs this lease, make sure that you send it to us for us to read it. Or if you are adept at reading leases, or you have a friend of the family who does, just make sure that somebody reads that lease to make sure that everything in that lease is okay, that there's nothing illegal, there's nothing scary, that there is no language that is ambiguous that might not benefit your student. And we have been doing this for years, and we are very familiar with the leases in the area. We are very familiar with illegal clauses that some landlords try to put in there. So just make sure that we read it before they sign it. This is an example of the standard form fixed-term lease. So this is the form that's approved by the Greater Boston Real Estate Board. And this is a lease that I would say that 98% of the landlords and realtors use for their properties. So it's a standard lease. The standard lease is fine. Most likely that lease is going to come with an extra set of rules and regulations set by the landlord called an addendum. This is where you want to be very, very careful about what's being written in that addendum. Are there extra illegal fees that are being put in those clauses? Are there things that aren't going to benefit your student? So those are the ones that we really take special care to look at and explain those to your student. Components of a lease. You want to make sure that the lease has all of these things. Name, address, contact information of the landlord. All names have to be on the lease. Amount of rent and date it's due. Lease start date and end date. Name and contact information for repairs, and the addendum. If the lease is only the fixed-term lease and it's being sent to you to sign, before you sign that, make sure you ask, is there an addendum that goes with this? There isn't one that you sent me. I just want to make sure, because we don't see it very often where it's just a fixed-term lease. There's always an addendum. So just make sure that they're not having you sign the fixed-term lease without showing the addendum first. And make sure that the contact information with repairs is a phone number. Make sure that your student has the ability to actually call a real person, okay, and that is listed on the lease. So the last thing that we help with is problems. So when your student moves off campus, there can be a number of problems that can happen, and we are also experts in helping your student figure out how to navigate that problem, how to communicate with their landlord, what are the steps that they can and should take in order to get that problem fixed. So some of the common problems that we see: quality housing at a reasonable rate. That is something that is hard for us to change, but it's something that we help students figure out how to go through the apartment hunting process in the best way possible in order to find that quality housing and to find something in their budget. Repairs not being completed. And so when that happens, we really suggest that the student comes in, tells us what those repairs need to be, what communication if it had already, and then we help them navigate the steps in order to get those repairs done in a reasonable time frame. And they have the right to a clean and sanitary, safe apartment. So make sure that when your student moves in that they fill out a form called a condition form. And there is a PDF of one on our website. And this is a form that they fill out to write down anything that is wrong with that apartment when they move in and to ask for those repairs. Illegal fees. So even if they sign the lease and they never actually read the lease, have them come in and talk to us and we can figure out how to move forward. Unresponsive landlords. Unfortunately, there are a lot of landlords that don't live here in the city and can be unresponsive. And so we figure out how to navigate that as well. Roommate conflicts. Just so you know that this is an issue that seems to be on the rise currently, right now, which brings us back to that point of really making sure that your student is communicating with their roommate, that they're all on the same page. If that's not happening and issues arise, we have skills in mediation, and they can come in and we can help them talk through things. And the only people on the lease can live there. If someone's not on a lease and they can't live there, they're not protected by that lease. And so therefore, if anything happens, they don't have a lot of legal rights because they're not on the lease. So make sure everyone's on it. Scam alert. I just want to go over a couple of these real quick just to be mindful of them. We don't see scams a lot, but they do occur. Only work with people and realtors you can meet in person. Never rent a place you can't view in advance. Never make payments in the form of cash or MoneyGram. And again, trust your gut. If it doesn't feel right, then it probably isn't. you can always talk to us and we can help you think through it and determine if it is a misunderstanding or if it doesn't feel right. And use our database. Okay, so here are some suggestions on what you can do to help through this. So talk with your students about the housing search process. Where are they looking? What is the realtor like? What does the apartment look like? In this wonderful age of iPhones and FaceTime or whatever technology your student has, feel free to ask them to FaceTime with you when they're going through the apartment, or take pictures if they can and show you so that you also have a visual of where they might be living. If you're in the area, feel free to go with them if you can. Have they read the lease? So just ask them, have they read the lease? Have them show it to you. Make sure that they come to us for us to read it. And make sure that they're really looking at the apartment. As I mentioned, if you're out of town, make sure they're sending you photos. And make sure you ask them the questions if it's up to code. You know, is it fire safe? We have another list on our website, is a PDF that is it's called the Housing Code Checklist. And this has a number of housing codes listed on it that you can go through to educate yourself and to make sure that whatever apartment your student is moving into, that it meets these codes. And if it doesn't, that's a problem. Okay, so the last thing is stay in communication with us. We send out a newsletter a couple times a month, and it always pertains to whatever is happening that month. So for example, December, it's really starting to get cold. We send an article about heat and making sure that, is the heat working? Is your student being fire safe in regards to their heat? Are we, making sure that they're not turning their heat off when they go home for break so their pipes don't freeze, things like that. And so we really specify the newsletters according to the time of year and things that are going on so that students are just highly educated. So go to northeastern.edu/offcampus/newsletter and you can sign up for our newsletter so you get that too. That way you get the topics to be able to ask your student questions and have these conversations with them to make sure that they're also getting this information and that they're educated. And that is the end of my presentation. So thank you all so very much. Please let us know what questions you have. And as I mentioned, go to our website. There's lots more information on there. And all those PDFs and all those resources that I mentioned, they're all listed on our website. And you can even download them and print them if you want. And then we're also on social media if you want to stay connected with us that way.
Thank you, Rebecca. That was really informative and quite a lot of details there. We will begin to start taking questions, and we've had a few already coming in. I know you talked about the apartment fair coming up in February. When should students really be looking for a September lease? Should they be starting now, January, February? When is it too late and when is it not too early?
That's a really good question. So what I would say is December is the time to start thinking about all the details. How many people you want to live with, what neighborhood, how far do you want to live from campus. And then in January and February, start looking. I would highly suggest just start going on the database and seeing what's on there. See what you get for your money. See what these apartments look like. The more you and your student educate yourself on what's out there, the more they're going to make a good decision on an apartment. And do not let them jump to the first apartment. I suggest have them look at 10 to 20 apartments. I know that seems like a lot, but trust me, I've lived in Boston for years, and this always held true when I was renting, that you look at a lot of apartments because the right one will come up, and you need to look at a lot of bad ones before you get to the good ones. Okay, so have them look at a number of, that's also going to help them figure out what they want. As soon as they start looking at them, they're going to realize, oh, maybe I don't want this, but I do want this, and that's going to help them find the right one. So then in February, it's the beginning of February, which is great. Go to the apartment fair, February 6th, and then find that apartment February. So between February and March, sign a lease. If they don't sign a lease until April, May, it's fine. They're not going to be homeless. They will find an apartment. There isn't as much inventory, but you can still find an apartment all the way up through August. It makes it a little more challenging in August, but you still have lots of time. But the high time for the most inventory is January through mid-March.
We have a couple questions about furnishing an apartment. Are there any recommended vendors you would recommend? And then how do most students handle an unfurnished apartment? What do they basically do?
Sure. So what I would say is for them to have those conversations with their roommates, who has what already, right? Who can bring certain things from home? And then decide, okay, what are the things they don't have? And if there are things that they don't have, that you have two options. You can either, actually have three options. You could buy new, you could buy used, or you can rent. And there is a furniture rental company called CORT, C-O-R-T, CORT Furniture, and you can rent different packages. You can rent a bedroom furniture package, you could do, dining room table, living room, whatever you might need for a certain amount of time. And then at the end of that time, then the furniture goes back. So that's a great way if you don't want to have to worry about buying, selling, get rid of it, or storing it. That's a great way to do it. If your student thinks that they want to live off campus for the next 3 years, then maybe buying furniture is the right move. But if you don't want to buy new furniture, then there's always the option of, there are a number of used furniture stores. If you just type into Google used furniture in Boston, there's a number of stores in the area. There's also IKEA, which is new, but it's great and it's super easy to put together. So that's another good option.
A little bit about costs, living on campus compared to living off campus. Can you speak a little bit about, is it compatible? Are they more expensive?
Sure. I do get that question a lot of what's more expensive and what's cheaper. And what my answer is, and I'm sorry, this is not a great answer, but it all depends. So it depends if you're getting a brand new, fully renovated apartment with granite countertops. That's big. And it's in the Back Bay. That's going to be more than living on campus. But if you're a little further out and it's not updated, then it could be. It also depends on how many roommates you have. If you're living in a studio or a single or one bedroom, that can be more expensive. But if you're splitting it 4 ways, that could be less expensive. But just keep in mind quality versus price. So don't let your student go so low in their budget and in their rent and not live in a safe place. We want to make sure that every student is living in a safe and sanitary apartment. So just make sure that if your student comes home and says, Mom, Dad, I found this great apartment at this great price, and it seems too good to be true, it might be too good to be true. So just make sure that they're looking at it also through the lens of safety and upkeep.
So you had mentioned in the city of Boston, only 4 students can live in an apartment. Is there an exception to that at all? Because one of our parents has just said that there is a situation where 6 of them were living together in a 3-bedroom.
Okay, so there are exceptions. The ordinance only applies to undergrads. Okay, so if your student is, say there's 6 of them, say there's 4 undergrads and 2 grad students, fine. If there's 6 grad students, fine. If there's 6 undergrad students, it might not be fine. And I say might because a couple things can happen. It could be, say, a 4 or 6 bedroom apartment and it has the capacity to hold 6 people. It's still against the ordinance, but the city isn't going to kick them out, okay? If you have 6 people living in an apartment and only 4 of them are on the lease and the landlord or the realtor said, oh, don't worry about it, it's fine, the 6 of you can live there, we'll just put 4 of you on the lease, that way the city doesn't find out, you won't get in trouble. The problem is those 2 people not in the lease are not protected by the lease. So at any point in time, that landlord could come and say, you have to get out. You have to move out tonight, and they don't have a choice. So the city is not out to take away housing from your student. They just want to make sure it's not an overcrowded situation. So in that, if it's a 3-bedroom and there's 6 of them living there, I would ask some more questions because that might be an overcrowded situation.
So a question a few parents are asking right now is when it comes time to write that rent check, does each student write it separately? Does one person, or is it one person on the hook for it? How do you, what do you think is the best way?
So what we've seen happen in the last year or two, which is not the case for everybody, but it seems that a lot of the landlords and property managers are requiring the students to have one account. So then they automatically withdraw, or the students send them that money from one account. That most landlords and realtors or management companies don't want 4 checks. They just want one. So what we've seen is students are each paying individually, but they're paying into one account, and then it's from that one account that the money is going to the landlord or the property manager. But landlords can ask for different things. Some of them do accept 4 checks, but that's what we've seen as sort of the trend right now. If they're asking something different of you and you're concerned about it, let us know.
So here's a question. My son will be on co-op from July 2019 to December 2019. What do you think the best option would be for him?
What are the dates again?
July 19.
July 19.
To December 19.
To December 19.
Is this something that would maybe be a sublet or?
Exactly. So what I would suggest is and it depends on where he's going. So if he's going in a place where he could do a sublet search while he's away, that's the best option because we don't recommend that he signs a lease starting September and then not be there to know what's going on. So what I would suggest is just to hold off, sublet in the spring, so that would be spring 2020. That sounds crazy. Spring 2020. And if he is abroad, what I would just suggest is have him be in communication with us because we can help him through that process in terms of finding. So what he would do is he would find a room that another student is subletting. Okay? So he would sublet somebody else's room, stay in their room, hopefully with their furniture, for the spring semester.
Okay. A couple questions on the new building, Lakeview.
Yes.
Is there a way a parent can see the lease that their students might be signing?
Yes, I believe so. So I know that students are signing leases now for units starting September 2019. So they have to follow the same rules as everybody else, that they are by law required to show you a lease or to show your student a lease that they can read before they sign any documentation. So if your student's interested in that building, have them contact Lakeview and then just have your student show you that lease before they sign it.
Are there a lot of vacancies right now, or do you...
As far as I know, that there are still a lot of vacancies. So if you're interested, definitely look into it.
Okay. We have a parent saying, my son is interested in moving into an apartment where someone already lives. They're being told they will have to commit by December 15th of this year to keep the apartment beginning 9/1. We feel very pressured. Does this sound right to you?
So wait, the student is living there now?
My son is interested in moving to an apartment where someone already lives, so I'm guessing he would take their place.
I see.
They're being told they will have to commit by this week to keep the apartment for 9/1. We feel very pressured to make this commitment.
Don't let realtors and management companies or brokers pressure you into signing something when you're not ready. So if that apartment is good, it's well maintained, the property manager or the landlord is responsive, and it's a good situation and those roommates seem like it will be a good situation, then that might be great. But if there are a lot of unanswered questions or there are aspects about that apartment that you're unsure about, do not feel like, oh my goodness, we have to take this now because we're not going to be able to find something better. Guaranteed you will find something better in the next coming months. But if that's a good situation and it seems like a good apartment, then yes. But look at all of those factors.
So you talked a little bit in the beginning about the different neighborhoods near Northeastern and outside of Northeastern. Is there any area that you wouldn't recommend or you think could be unsafe for students?
What I would suggest is for your student to visit that neighborhood. We do live in a city, so no matter where they live, they need to be vigilant at all times, during the day, at night. If they are coming back from the library super late at night, it does not matter if they live 5 minutes from campus in Fenway or 20 minutes away in Mission Hill, that they should think about taking the Red Eye, which is the escort van service that Northeastern provides. And that goes from the library and from Ruggles, and it goes out to a 2-mile radius around campus. It can drop them off. So just make sure that they understand that they're in a city. Don't walk around with earbuds in their ears. In terms of neighborhoods, the majority of students live in Fenway area right next to campus and then also in the Mission Hill area. There are also lots of other areas, and what I would suggest is have your student look at it during the day. Have them go with a friend at night to see, do they feel comfortable walking around here at night? And if the answer is no, then look elsewhere. So looking at an apartment also means looking at the neighborhood.
So if a student is subletting, should their name be on the lease or the person?
Oh, good question.
Or the person they were subletting from. So a lot of people are asking that question.
Right. So really good question. So for the lease, it's a year lease. September 1st to the end of August, 4 people are on the lease. Those people are legally bound by that lease to that apartment, okay? So student A goes to Chicago for co-op, and they get a sublet to take their room, okay? What we suggest is that student A and the subletter write a sublet agreement. And we don't provide a sublet agreement for legality reasons, but you can easily Google sublet agreement and find one online for an example. And what we suggest is students can definitely bring that in and we can review it to see is there anything that they should add. And what you should have in it is the names of the student, the dates that this student is subletting the apartment, the rent that's being paid, who are they paying the rent to? Are they paying the rent to the student? Are they being paid, is the rent being paid directly to the landlord? We always suggest the best option is directly to the landlord so that there isn't a changing of hands if something happens to that money. So yes, so make sure that there is that sublet agreement between the students.
So a couple questions about living on campus. I'm not sure if you know the answer to this, but we'll try our best here. Can a student live in housing while on co-op in Boston?
Can they live in
on-campus housing?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, absolutely, yes. So no matter if your student is on co-op, if they're on co-op here in Boston, they can live on campus or off campus. But then if they think that they're going to be going on co-op elsewhere, then kind of thinking about their plans and living on campus, just taking that into consideration.
We have a parent asking if their student has selected to live on campus, when can they, if they want to cancel, can they do that? I'm not sure if you know the date, but I would recommend emailing housing.
Oh, I don't know about the cancellation date. I know that applications, I should have brought the dates with me.
That's okay. We actually did a session with them. If you want to have questions about on-campus living and the application process, I see there are actually a couple questions there. Feel free to email parents@northeastern.edu, and I will forward them on to the housing office in regards to cancellation and things like that.
Right.
So.
And I do know that the application process for on-campus housing is going to be open, I want to say on the 15th. So it's going to be open very soon. So if your student's not sure if they want to live on or off, my recommendation is to go through the process at the same time. Have them apply for on-campus housing. They'll get a lottery number, and then before they need to put down a deposit, they can start looking at apartments, okay? And then they can decide. And then just start going through that. Let us know if you have a specific case that you want to talk through with us, but that's my recommendation.
Good. You had also mentioned there may be some financial aid assistance.
Mm-hmm.
How do students find about that if they qualify?
Talk to their financial aid advisor, and they can give you more specifics.
If a student wants to live in Lakeview, can they access the database system that you were talking about to look for someone saying that they were told that there is a 4-bedroom, 4-bath, and they need 2 more roommates? Can they look on your database?
Yes, they can look on our database for roommates, absolutely. So have them go onto the roommate tab, and my suggestion is it's a 2-step process. Have your student look for other students who have posted about themselves saying, hey, I need a roommate. But then the second thing they're going to do, they're also going to make a profile about themselves and make a posting about themselves that they're also looking for a roommate. So they're going to search, and they're also going to post their own listing about themselves.
Here's a student that kind of has a problem. My student is a leaseholder on an apartment. She's being evicted in September without being asked if she would like to renew. Is this legal?
It is. Unfortunately, they are not required to renew your student's lease. And so if they choose not to, then she's only bound by the term of her current lease, unfortunately. But there's a caveat to that.
Okay.
If you or your student feels like there is discrimination involved in that decision, then that's kind of a different story. And if that's the case, let us know. We have some resources where students and you all as parents can talk to in the city of Boston if that seems like that might be the problem.
Okay. Well, Rebecca, I want to thank you so much for coming out tonight and
Very welcome.
teaching us about the process. And there are several questions that we did not get to. Please feel free to email us at parents@northeastern.edu, and I can send them on to Rebecca, and
Right.
I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you have. At this time, we are going to be ending the webinar. Shortly, you are going to receive a survey. I would appreciate it if you could take a few moments to fill out the survey about tonight's session and also provide us with any feedback that you would like to see on upcoming Tuesday Talk sessions. Also, I know the holiday break's coming up for everyone, and I want to wish you and your family that you all have time together after the first year, the academic year. And our next webinar is going to take place on January 15th. We will send an email out from 7 to 8 p.m., and the topic is going to be Happy and Healthy in the New Semester. So we hope you'll be able to join us then. If you did attend the webinar a little late, I know many of you are asking, can you get copies of the slide? We are recording it, and it will be available on our website on Tuesday Talks, probably on the 17th of December, so all the slides will be available. And then, of course, you can always visit Rebecca's website. We'll put that back on for a moment, the website, and then I will send out the survey.
And you can also always email us at offcampus@northeastern.edu with any questions that you have.
All right, thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight, and have a good evening.
Thank you all. Good night.